I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
So I just think the world is getting really crazy here with the Israel and whatever war is going on and that. Then I don't know. I keep hearing that they're talking about us going to war with some people. Maybe that's all rumors, but it's just retarded.
Well, that is part of the strange thing to me is in the 1950s, we had the Great Red Scare, which was the Republican Party largely under Senator McCarthy, who was running around telling everyone that there were communists everywhere. And there were a fair number of communists in the United States. It's not a surprise. But that there were communists everywhere and they had infiltrated the government, all this other stuff. And he was doing it, of course, really for publicity because he was a no-name senator and just wanted the power. And that's exactly what came of it. My point being, it was the Republicans who were fighting communists. And they were doing so, fighting communists. And they were doing so for quite some time. And now you have the opportunity where starting from 2014 onward, really 2013, but 2014 onward, you have a country that was doing nothing wrong, nothing illegal, and their sovereignty was completely, utterly, totally violated by another country. But the thing that people don't seem to remember is President Putin has been doing this since he came to power. So it was
Yeah.
Chechnya, Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova. So he took a hefty chunk out of Georgia, a very sizable chunk out of Georgia. The way that's actually, the timeline works out, first it was Chechnya, and he went after Chechnya, and the world didn't care when he effectively satellited Chechnya, the Chechen Republic. After that occurred, he moved on then to Georgia because Georgia put in Chechnya had been aligning itself with the West. Georgia is now aligning itself with the West. This is 2008-ish. And as Georgia aligned itself with the West, Putin took issue with that because they ousted his puppet government. When they ousted his puppet government, Putin then actually invaded, and he took a nice, very sizable chunk out of Georgia, which, by the way, he's now using to build a massive naval base because, I mean, that's what they do. And he has actually constantly threatened Georgia since that he was going to come back in and finish the job. Since nobody did anything about Chechnya or Georgia, he then went after Ukraine when Ukraine, again, ousted the Russian puppet. So when the Russian puppet president was ousted, Putin, of course, took issue. It was legitimate elections. A pro-Western backed government was put in power, and that's when Putin invaded. There are no legal grounds for doing that. Ukraine, so the worst part to me, though, is the United States and UK, France, and Russia, along with Ukraine, all signed the Budapest Memorandum. And part of this was for Ukraine, I believe it was 1992, for Ukraine to disarm, nuclear disarmament. Russia promised it would never threaten to attack or attack Ukraine. Never. At the same time, the United States and its allies, but the United States as a major signatory, promised that if Russia ever broke that promise, the United States would back Ukraine militarily, etc. And so I find the whole thing interesting because the Republican Party has aligned itself with Putin since George Bush Jr. So you're talking since really September 11th. Actually, it was before September 11th, where you have George Bush sitting there saying, oh, I looked into his soul and all of this other baloney. And Putin has, because he has been allowed to take these other countries, he has been emboldened. Come 2014, where they take a chunk out of Ukraine, the United States and its allies, rather than fulfilling its actual obligations under actual treaties, and rather than having the UN do its damn job, which is prevent two UN nations from going to war, especially over something like this. The United States told the Ukraine that they had to accept peace in unfavorable terms and lose two important regions in Ukraine because, of course, Russia wanted the Crimean Peninsula. And they also obviously want all of Ukraine. Ukraine itself is the breadbasket of Europe. It's
Mm-hmm.
important. It feeds a lot of Africa, it feeds a lot of Europe, and it feeds a lot of Asia. So for Putin to have it means he has huge control over oil fields, but which is big oil fields, which Russia needs. Not because they need the money. Russia is flush with natural resources. They just it all gets exploited by oligarchs, and it's an incredibly corrupt country. Anyway, so the United States, etc., force Ukraine into peace in unfavorable terms, giving up very important pieces of Ukraine. And all that did was allow Putin to rebuild his forces and then go at it again in 2022. The whole thing just infuriates me because you have the Republicans who are kowtowing to a man who has openly stated he wants to recreate the Soviet Union. Putin wants to recreate the Soviet Union. There's a reason why Poland and Germany and Finland, etc., have been scared as really as scared as one can be. And that is because they recognize what's going on and they know what the end goal is of Putin. And he's made it clear. He's never, since 1999, he's run around saying he wanted to recreate the Soviet Union. And that's when he came to power, for Pete's sake. When he took Chechnya, that's what he was saying. When he took a nice sizable chunk out of Georgia, that's what he was saying. When he took Ukraine, when he took the Crimean region and tried to actually take all of Ukraine in 2014, that's what he said. He's made it very clear what his goals are. And you can be stupid and say, "Oh, but we don't want to have World War III." But that's exactly how dictators like Putin operate. I mean, that's what Chamberlain did with Hitler. And I know everyone goes to Hitler and all this other stuff, but it's a literal replay of Hitler. The UK and France gave Hitler, they let him do Anschluss, so he took Austria. So then Hitler takes Czechoslovakia. And by the way, the UK and France were allies with Czechoslovakia and had claimed that they would protect Czechoslovakia, and they just let it happen. And then he goes after Poland. And again, I mean, yeah, that technically starts World War II, but not really, because France and the UK really didn't do much to stop him when he rolled over Poland. You're seeing the same thing play out, the exact same thing. And that's what bothers me the most is you don't prevent world war by giving tyrants what they want. That's how they get bigger and stronger and stronger and stronger.
That's just crazy. Like I didn't even know half of that was going on, like the actual backstory to a lot of it. I know you had talked about it a little bit, but it's just insane. And then not even knowing that Bush actually like was backing
Mm-hmm.
Putin at some point. And was Trump backing Putin as well, or
Yes.
was that just?
Yes. Yes.
So is this a trend with the Republican Party? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're exact. That's the thing that bothers me the most. It is the really far right. Weirdly, has aligned itself not with fascists. You'll have all these people saying, "Oh, the far right's fascist." They've
Right.
aligned themselves with communists.
That is insane.
I know. My mind just explodes at the thought of the whole thing. And they do it under the guise of, "Oh, we want to prevent World War III. China's not going to get involved." And
Right.
even if China does, we've already seen their tires don't even work. And I'm not joking. Their tires don't work. Their weapons don't work. Who does Russia have on their side? North Korea, whose weapons are garbage. Iran, who, I mean, we would flatten in days if we wanted to. They'd fall faster than Iraq did. Putin has actually been, Putin's not an idiot. He has been trying to play nice with Africa and South America for a little while.
Mm.
Now, Xi Jinping in China has actually done a much better job. But China has done even better than just playing nice and giving them loans, in that China has been building a lot of things for free or for ridiculously low prices in Africa and in South America, building railways and really buttressing a lot of governments. And by doing this, what they've done is they have made a lot of what we would call third world countries more like second world countries. So the distinction between the three things, because most Americans, for whatever reason, have forgotten. First world countries, those are the allies. It has nothing to do with, it didn't become an economic thing until much later. Second world countries were those who were aligned with the USSR. Third world were those that were neutral. That those who were aligned with the USSR tended to be, gray shanty
Okay.
towns. That's its own thing. But the point being, China has managed to move good portions of Africa to become pro-China, and as a result, pro-Russia. Russia's buttressed African despots throughout the region via Wagner, and that was on purpose to trade. But these despots can't do anything; they're useless. In fact, actually, as Wagner has collapsed, so have the despots. So has Russia's power, which then comes to, again, I mean, what do you have for options? You have China, which has openly stated they don't want to get involved, and their stuff's garbage anyway. You have North Korea, you have Iran. Those are the big three. I mean,
Those are the big three. You're talking about if Putin wanted to go to war, he
right.
would need those.
Yeah.
So who are our allies?
Most of Europe, and then, of course, Canada, Australia. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, okay. So when you say most of Europe, are we talking about like Britain?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah, yeah.
British?
So all of the UK, so of course England, Ireland, Wales, etc. You have Germany, France, Italy.
Oh,
Yeah, right. So big countries. Like I said, we have Canada outside of Europe, and Australia again outside of Europe. We have Japan. Uh,
I was about to say it's Japan, and we got Japan. That's a big one.
it
That's
is.
huge.
Yes. Yes. We also have Turkey. Now, Turkey is technically a NATO ally, but they have. So the current Turkish president is Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who has been in power for, I believe, 20 years, maybe a little longer. He's been in power for a long time. And he is unapologetically Muslim. Turkey,
Ah, okay.
yes. So after Turkey broke the shackles, so World War One occurs. Turkey, of course, was the Ottoman Empire. They fought on the side of the Central Powers, which is what Germany, etc., were called. They wind up losing. So the British come in later on and try to subjugate it. Ataturk comes along and he kicks the British out, and then Turkey gets formed. And as part of he did massive reformation of Turkey, trying to align it to the West. That included making it so that constitutionally Turkey had to be secularist, so it couldn't be Islamic governmentally, and it couldn't be pro-Islam or anything like that. No laws that are pro-Islam. But he himself, he's played a tight dance. So Turkey's still upset. This goes back to the United States and its broken promises. Okay, you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Yep.
You know how it was resolved?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you the lie that you'll hear in school. Okay, so so the lie is JFK called Khrushchev, who was in charge of Russia, and the two, after a whole bunch of conversations, JFK finally gets him to back down. Right, the Russians back down because some of the claims are, oh, they didn't want to start a war, and he was afraid of war, and they also knew that Fidel Castro was a bit of a loose cannon. Castro kept begging for the ability to manage the nuclear weapons themselves. himself, I should say. So he kept begging to manage the nuclear weapons himself, and Khrushchev didn't want that. Long story short, what really happened was the reason why the Russians put nukes and were trying to put weapons in Cuba was because the United States had put nuclear weapons in Turkey.
Okay, all right, I got you.
So we could hit Russia. The populated part of Russia is the western part. The eastern part has very little, and same with the north. So we could easily just decimate all of eastern Russia, and they couldn't do anything. That's why they wanted to put the missiles in Cuba, was to even the playing field. I'm not being a Russian apologist. This is just actual history. These are actual undisputable facts.
Right.
So as part of the agreement, the United States would pull its nuclear weapons out of Turkey if Cuba didn't get nuclear weapons. That's what actually resolved the Cuban Missile Crisis. That's what ended it, was this agreement between the two sides that fine, we'll put them out. But our agreements with Turkey, when we initially put the nuclear weapons there, was we would give them these nuclear weapons and they would let us have bases and do all this other stuff. And in return, we would give them money and treat them fairly, and they'd be an integral part of NATO. Basically, they'd be important again, which is what they wanted. Remember, the Ottoman Empire ruled, honestly, a huge swath of land for hundreds of years. Absolutely important nation. It was on its last leg for several of those 100 years, but that's a different matter.
Yeah.
So Turkey's still bitter about the fact that we never actually fulfilled our promises to Turkey. And that is part of the reason why Erdogan has managed to gain the power that he has. It's how his party came to power. And that's also why he plays to Russia, and he tries to act as an intermediary to Russia. Number one, he wants Turkey to be powerful again, be a power broker. And he doesn't feel like the United States, even though Turkey's part of NATO. I bring this up only to say Turkey is also technically on our side, as well as, of course, a good portion of Europe now, including, of course, now we have Finland, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium. Basically, if it's in Western Europe, it's part of NATO. And for the most part, most of the Eastern European countries are also part of NATO. Here's the joke, though. Putin has worked hard to rewrite history. He makes claims about how Ukraine was part of Russia for hundreds of years, which isn't accurate. He makes, and it wouldn't matter anyway. If that claim were valid, then Mexico could rightfully invade us because Texas, California, Colorado, etc. were all part of Mexico for a substantial portion of time. And we actually illegally stole Texas. And there's irony there. You know how we got Texas?
How?
Texas
because I was about to say, before you go, I was about to say Texas remind me of some parts of Mexico, and they're really close. So it makes sense. But go ahead.
Yeah. So Texas, of course, was part of Mexico. It was in fact, actually, my wife's ancestors ruled over that state. It was a gigantic state, much bigger than it is today. And the way Texas worked at the time was it was 100% Mexican. And then you had, of course, all of these Southerners, because the United States, this is pre-Civil War. So the United States is in this big battle, North and South, over slavery, whether or not it's going to continue. The North wanted to kill it. In fact, they actually, all of the founders had wanted it dead and had plans to kill it over time. And that's why they actually stopped the slave trade in the early 1800s. That and Britain was going to punish us if we didn't. But what wound up happening was you had all of these Southerners flooding into Texas. So they're crossing the border into Mexico. And they are, at this point, Mexico has already banned slavery. Okay. And so Mexico went through and they said, okay, guys, we don't allow slavery. So now they allowed slavery of indigenous people, of Native Americans, but we're going to ignore that for a minute. We don't allow slavery of Africans, so you need to stop bringing your slaves. And these Southerners who were invading Mexico, like really badly, just wouldn't stop. And what wound up happening was they managed to get enough of these Southerners into Texas that they were able to mount a rebellion. This is similar to what they were trying to do in Kansas and Kentucky, and what they were actually trying to do across various states in what we would now call the Midwest. That's what the South was doing. They wanted to spread slavery as much as they could, and that's what they were trying to do. The joke and irony being, today Texans complain about, and Americans, United States citizens, complain about illegal immigrants. In the early 1800s, it was Mexico complaining about illegal American U.S. immigrants.
That's crazy. What?
Yeah. Yeah, and the Mexicans were going, you're ruining our country, because they were flooding it with English speakers who refused to speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
They refused to abide by the laws. A lot of them didn't have jobs, and they couldn't make money off the land, so they were on the Mexican dime. Does any of this sound familiar?
Somewhat. Oh man, yes, I know exactly what you mean.
So it's
Crossing the
exactly right.
lines here.
It's
Yeah.
exactly right. I mean, payback's a bitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my point there really being, if you want to claim that Russia has claim over Ukraine due to some kind of historical cause, then Mongolia has claim over a large swath of the world. I mean, you remember how large the Mongols were.
Mm-hmm.
The Mongol Empire was massive. And
Hey, yeah, they was. I heard they were the big threat back then.
and Italy
Yeah.
can just take all the Mediterranean and Britain.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this whole thing
Yeah,
is
that's crazy.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely stupid. And anyway, I'm sorry you can't take a country just because historically they were part of it. You literally have a treaty with them that said, okay, if you take away your nuclear weapons, we promise we'll never invade. And you can't. I just Anyway, but you have these idiots on the far right saying, and idiots on the far left. You have on both sides saying, "Oh well, we will cause World War III if we do this." And it's like, you're going to cause World War III if you keep letting him take all this land, because he's not going to stop
Yeah.
at Ukraine. He already took a chunk out of Moldova. No one talks about the fact that he took a strip out of Moldova.
No, that's crazy. Yeah. I don't know. It's this is a lot of information that nobody told me in school, and they don't really talk about this in school. Even when I was in college, we didn't have a conversation about this. So trying to get into politics now and trying to understand what's really going on, it's just kind of crazy. And it kind of seems like there's a little shadiness going on there. I mean, I guess you would consider that for anything we do, as far as business and everything from that their own end. But it's just crazy. And then not even knowing, this is something I think I learned maybe a year or two ago, that I didn't know that the government was run by people with money.
Yeah, it is.
I remember them saying something about this guy was on TV talking about the, I don't know if they, I don't want to say it wrong or misplace his words, but it was almost like he was saying his, like like stakeholders
Yeah.
were, mad or pissed. It was actually on TV, and the guy said the stakeholders were this and that or something. They were, losing money. This is around the time we was going through the crisis of COVID. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me that people with money are running Congress? No way.
That
I
was
just think
yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, that was the Citizens United Supreme Court case that wound up giving business a voice in elections by allowing these huge super PACs. And that is exactly what has come of it.
That's insane to me. Like, I was thinking it was. I mean, I don't know how it would run itself, but running from businesses, putting money into it, like it makes it's so you got these people, stakeholders putting money into it, businesses, right? And it makes me wonder if they're doing that also to make sure that they're not taxed.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. So they can spend far less buying politicians than it would cost them in taxes. If they had to pay the same exact taxes, they would pay significantly more.
Man, yeah, this goes way further up the road. Like this is a rabbit hole that we can spend a lot of time on, but it's just kind of crazy to think about the way this is structured. And if you don't understand the way things are structured and the politics of things, and it kind of starts to go over your head. And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't really into politics. I think my grandmother was, like
Yeah,
all she always told me we were Democrats and this is what she believed in, but she never really went further into what things meant
yeah,
and why we were doing the things or why things were doing, like why the Democrats did what they did, what were their ambitions, their goals, what was the Republicans. All I do is the Republicans were evil, and they wanted us to be taxed more and didn't really want to help the poor. But then when you look at it in these day and age, and I start to really look at what there is, it's kind of like sometimes I'm on the Republican side and sometimes I'm on the Democrat
yeah.
side, and then I'm like, screw you guys, I'm in the middle because I don't know what the you guys are talking about. So it's kind of like confusing, which is why I'm in between. I don't know who to choose, especially now. I don't know who, and I don't know, like, and to be honest with you, I don't even know if I want to vote because there's no good candidates. Like, I'm not voting for Trump again, and I didn't vote for
Oh
Trump anyway.
God. And
Uh,
Biden. Oh my God.
yeah, and Biden was horrible. I didn't vote for Biden either. And I know people will be like, "Oh, well, you didn't vote, so you should shut up." Listen, I didn't vote for a reason because I didn't believe in either candidate.
Yeah. Well, that's where the United States actually needs to overhaul how it's doing voting. I wish when we pushed a constitution on Japan and we
Yeah,
did the same thing to Germany, the constitution we pushed doesn't have the same form of government that we do. It's a republic like ours, but it's actually better mirrored to what the UK has than it is to what we have.
mm, yeah,
I've always laughed at that. That's always made me sit there and say, and it's the State Department that's running around writing these even to this day. It's always made me sit there and say, it's a little telling when we push other countries to use a government that is not like ours. They don't vote the way we do, and they actually tend to be more successful. They're better able to keep a duopoly, which is what the United States has. We have the two parties that operate more like a monopoly, honestly, because they work together in a lot of ways. But at best, if we're being nice here, they're a duopoly, and they just
so
trade
is
control.
that done to keep these countries in our grip so they could never really become more powerful than us?
That's a really good question. A lot of it actually has to do with the fact that when you have elections the way that Italy, France, Britain, Japan, etc. do it, it winds up having more parties. And so they have to form what are called coalition governments, which, yes, that does in some ways diminish the power of the government, but it also makes the government more responsive to the people because the people have more
Yeah,
choices. Um,
that makes sense. Like that's kind of what I was just wondering if it seems like these things are done on purpose
mhm.
and to keep them from getting or becoming more powerful. I mean, I wonder if if these countries that we put in place, if they had a better structure or government, maybe they would. I doubt they would rise up that much, but they would be more efficient. Maybe I don't know.
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. The inefficiencies of the governments are actually built in on purpose. This is something a lot of people don't like to admit or recognize. The reality is, in today's day and age, most jobs can actually be done away with. Most jobs, most people's work can be replaced by robots, computers, what have you. So the government actually pays companies to be wasteful, to have jobs that they don't need. For example, to hire someone who has a mental disability or a handicap, government will actually pay the company money, and they do so by giving them tax breaks and various incentives, but it's the same as paying the money. And so that's why you'll see people who have mental deficiencies bagging groceries, or at least you used to. Now that's all self-serve, but that's what they were doing,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
you'd have to bag groceries. Well, it turns out it's even cheaper to not hire anyone at all, right? And instead make you, the customer,
Self
bag your own
checkout.
stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
it's another getaway. Yep,
and
they're doing a lot of
although
that.
they have more theft this way.
Uh-huh. It's easy to do that or steal through there, but they started trying to crack down on it, and like they have you see like at Walmart, they literally have the camera this
Mm-hmm.
close to see, and then a camera right here.
Mm-hmm.
But it that still doesn't mean I can't hide.
No.
Then you have to have somebody looking, checking, and there's still ways around it instead
Yes.
of just going to your regular process.
Yes. And a lot of the cameras don't work. And on top of that, who's going to actually stop someone? The whole thing's a giant joke. It's really stupid. I expect companies are going to start rolling that back. They have two options: either stop with the physical presence, which places like Walmart won't do. They make more
Right.
physically than they do online, as far as this kind of thing is concerned. Because if you go online only, now you're competing with Amazon. The thing that makes Walmart, Target, etc. useful is, I need it now, I can go get it now. You can't do that with Amazon.
Yeah. No. I felt like Amazon is trying to do something like that. They have an
Yes.
Amazon store.
Hmm.
They have a clothing store out in Columbus. And I believe they're going to start, or they might start opening up an actual store. They were talking about like grocery store and stuff like that. I think to try to compete with Walmart. Now, how do you think that would be if they opened up an Amazon store where you had stuff just like Walmart, everything you can get offline, majority, and then electronics, all that? How do you think that would go? Would you think that Amazon might beat out Walmart in a way,
Amazon would
or
if they wanted to. The
they got a
problem,
lot of stuff?
yes, they do. See, the problem that Amazon faces, though, is they will
Monopoly,
find themselves in the same place that Microsoft was in the
the monopoly,
1990s and
yeah,
2000s. Yes. And
yeah.
as you know, Microsoft was sued over and over again by the United States government and by the European Union over antitrust laws.
Hmm.
So that's why, little known fact, Apple, the only reason why Apple is around is because Microsoft gave Steve Jobs, via Bill Gates, the two were friends, huge amounts of money. Now, you'd ask, why the hell would Microsoft give its competitor massive amounts of money? Because Apple was broke multiple times.
Yeah, I remember that. I heard about that,
It is
and
Microsoft that saved them. And they did it only
and
because they didn't want to get sued.
and then you see
Hmm.
this whole big thing when Steve Jobs put uh, Bill Gates on screen and all this other stuff. You can see, like, I could tell what was going on there, but I mean, hey, whatever. It's just kind of funny, just learning the history about what really went on, even
Yes.
with that whole situation as well. But it makes me think about, what Amazon could do
Yeah.
if they really wanted to. But I keep hearing that they're talking about putting a store.
Yeah.
They already have a clothing store where you can get most of their clothes off in the store. But you're right, that would be crazy because they would literally like trump over
Hmm.
Walmart
Yeah.
with all the things that they have that you can buy there, and then it's not as expensive. So I don't really know, but I doubt I see them do that. Maybe the store that they were talking about actually making is more of a tech store. maybe computers and some clothes. Maybe that's going to be that. But I know that they already have a clothing store out in Columbus. So
Doesn't Bezos own Whole Foods?
yeah,
That's what I
I believe so.
thought. And that was his first foray into the whole thing, was he pushed into the retail world through Whole Foods. And the only reason why they didn't get slapped down for that is you have a lot of different grocery chains already around. And he's been careful not to completely obliterate the competition. But yeah, if he went to war with Walmart, he could drive them under quickly.
That's what I figured. It's just crazy. I know we're kind of getting in all different topics, but it just made me wonder about what you think would happen in that particular case if he actually was to open up
Yeah,
a grocery
yeah,
store per se.
yeah. That
Well,
would be interesting. And Walmart is killing itself, as you point out, by locking everything up. You go to a Walmart, it's next to impossible to buy what you want because it's all locked up, all of it, and you can't
it's
find
all
anyone.
it's all locked up. You can't find anyone. They're giving people wrong keys. Stuff is not where it's supposed to be. Tagged wrong. I mean, it's just all discombobulated. It's not really good at all. Not like it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. People still have a need to go there. It's open, and then the fact that it's not open 24/7 anymore
Yeah.
kind of kills the progress as well. Because I used to see a lot of people in there at night because if you needed anything, you could go.
Yes.
And now that they're not 24/7, that kind of kills a lot.
Yes. Yes. And as we talked about before, the interesting thing to that was pre-COVID, Walmart had switched to 24/7 over a short period of time and had been for years because they found it was actually more expensive and not worth it to shut down the store, because the process for, if you've ever worked retail, it's a lengthy process to shut down a store, a very lengthy process. And it's a lengthy process to start up a store.
Oh yeah, and knowing the companies that managed everything, and that's crazy because I didn't know places like Siemens
Mm-hmm.
and all of these Honeywell and all of these places kind of manage these different stores. They have their appliances or HVAC controls
Mm-hmm.
and all these different things they control. I didn't know that, but it takes a lot to do all that and a lot of money.
Yes.
But it would make sense to keep it going around the clock because it's less expensive to do shut down and start up. And I worked in retail and know how painful that can be.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So that's crazy, man. But again, hopefully they're around because Walmart is a go-to for a lot of people. Target is a little bit more expensive, but Walmart is definitely the go-to for a lot of people, especially in my community.
Yeah.
I'm sure in every community, but I just know that it's a go-to.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hope you guys learned something. That's our time. I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe for more episodes like this one. Until the next time.
Have fun.
Okay. I'm Roniel.
Now we have to start over because you said okay. I'm
Oh,
DaRon.
all right.
Oh my God, he just does it again.
All right. Wait, hold on. Wait, no.
This is why you go first.
You make me laugh, man.
That's because I have
All
to
right.
contemplate who the fuck I am every time.
I kind of know who I am. I don't think, have I ever said I'm DaRon?
No, I don't think so.
Nah. Yeah. See,
Wait,
I kind of know who I am.
I think there was one time. I do think it happened once.
I don't know, man. It may have happened once, but I don't know. I normally know who the hell I am, I guess.
Maybe I'm trying to make myself feel better.
Sometime when I'm on when we're on the stand up, that's when I don't know if I'm Roniel or Ron. And I I'm confused who I am today. I'm Roniel.
Oh my God, you go.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to start first.
That's fine, go.
Oh no, wait a minute, gotta start over. I gotta give me 1 second to get myself together.
Damn,
okay.
We're rusty.
Okay. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. Mm, 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 mm. All right.